Oberon's rework is here. Initially, I actually wasn't too sure about it, and that is because I was kind of building him wrong. But now that I've spent a bit more time with him, I am kind of wrong about him. He is pretty damn good. Now, he's not flashy. He doesn't nuke things like many other frames or Nokko or so, you know, all the frames that are nuking everything, and we are so fond of just one-shotting everything. He's definitely a lot better, but he is incredibly tanky at the moment. In fact, he is pretty much at Revenant level tankiness. It is insane. So in this video, we'll be going over everything Oberon and then talking about his new abilities and also some builds as well. Let's start off with his passive. His passive is probably one of the biggest changes to his kit. Picking up a health orb or a universal orb will generate a righteous negation charge for Oberon and allies within affinity radius. Oberon and his allies have their own individual caps of 3 charges. Now, what is righteous negation charges? What do they do exactly? Well, it's quite literally Revenant Mesmer charges. While you have charges, you are invulnerable to incoming damage. When damage is blocked or absorbed, it will consume a charge. If you have multiple righteous negation charges, you will remain invulnerable and receive a small 0.25 second cooldown before an additional righteous negation charge can be depleted. If the damage removes the final righteous negation charge that you have, you as the player will be granted an additional 0.25 seconds of invulnerability, which works out to roughly 1 second of invulnerability while you're basically moving through the negation charges, which is insane. Now, what makes this so crazy is the fact that health orbs are so abundant and easy to gain, which means this effect is pretty much going to be up all the time. And if you pair Synth Deconstruct with this with some companion synergies and so on, and your companion hitting a bunch of enemies, it is crazy how often this will be up. And then you can just throw in Arcane Universal Fallout into the mix, and then it's even crazier. So his passive is definitely much more powerful and also just allows you and your allies to be invulnerable, which is crazy. You can see how many charges you have via the HUD in the top right or how many shields are floating around you. And the cherry on top with Oberon is that pretty much his entire kit is based around radiation. This alone makes Oberon definitely one of the craziest support frames at the moment. His first ability is Smite. Send out an energy pulse or smite an enemy, dealing radiation damage. After the rework, enemies hit by Smite are completely overguard and armor stripped. They will lose 35% of their current health and shields in an instant. This effect does cap at 75%, which obviously scales with ability, strength, and so on. Smite does not bypass shields, so it will have to go through the shields and health and so on. Enemies within 6 meters of the target receive 10% of the damage dealt and are impacted by stagger. This really sucks. This is the one thing that is bothering me, because in the workshop this initially said 50%, and now obviously they've changed it. Now when it's the actual live build, or you know, that it's here, it's now 10%, which, if I'm being honest, if this was a little bit higher, it would make Oberon a fantastic nuker frame to the level of pretty much Sevagoth. But again, we can't always have all the things we want. Unfortunately, he is not going to be that powerful. If they do decide to change it, great, but I don't think they will. Ability range will affect the radius of Smite. Because of all of these changes, Smite no longer has secondary seeking projectiles like before. The nice thing about this ability is that it will target Eximus units and it will prioritize them if you cast it into a group. It is a good idea to wait or just cast this on tougher targets for Smite, because how this ability works is the more health an enemy has and the more damage you deal to the tougher target means the more damage you'll do to the targets nearby or around the main target, which is why Eximus units and so on are very, very important. Scaling enough ability strength will allow this to pretty much one-shot some things with some viral, raw, and also good strength scaling. So yeah, it does have the potential to nuke things if you wanted it to. Bottom line is, focus on higher health enemies for this ability. Smite Infusion is the augment. Hold to cast Smite to grant all allies within 50 meters an additional radiation damage to attacks for 40 seconds. This acts as the exact same as Shock Trooper. We all know how this works, applying a separate instance of radiation. This is just a really handy way to provide a crowd control status effect to distract enemies and deal more radiation damage. You can use this at your own discretion. Hallowed Ground is a full circle now. What this ability does is sends out this righteous fire, and enemies will be dealt with radiation damage, applying guaranteed radiation status effects on enemies, whereas before it wasn't guaranteed. The maximum amount of Hallowed Ground is now 3. Ability range will now increase the range of the circle, and nullifiers will no longer delete hallowed ground. Instead, the bubble will nullify the effects for anyone inside the bubble. This ability does tie into Oberon's third Renewal. Hallowed ground will cleanse you and your allies of status effects and grant you status effect immunity when you stand in it. Really handy to just give you all that quality of life and so on, and also just apply as many radiation status effects on enemies as possible, because you can stack them on top of each other, which will then tick up very quickly. Hallowed Eruption is the augment for this ability. This will allow you to reactivate the ability to deal all of its remaining damage and radiation status damage in an instant. Its passive will grant plus 200% ability duration. This means that your damage is affected by both strength and duration. It allows you to kind of just do a burst of damage, although its scaling is not as good as I would want it to be, or what you would want it to be. I haven't had the opportunity to try and make this broken or anything like that yet. His third ability is Renewal, which sends out healing waves of energy to you and your allies. The increased cost per target, or energy cost per target, is now removed entirely. Renewal now costs a flat 3.5 energy per second that it is active, no matter how many allies you are healing. Renewal affects allies within affinity range following you around, and you are also granted Iron Renewal, which increases your armor by 50% as Oberon. However, allies within affinity range will receive 100% of you as Oberon's armor from Iron Renewal as well. The more armor you have, the more your allies get. When you cast it, it will give you and your allies an initial heal and then heal you for a base of 40 health per second, scaling with ability strength, cleansing your status effects when you reach full health. Bleed timers are also slowed by 45% at base, and this is capped at 90% with 200% ability duration. Honestly, Renewal is pretty handy. It affects Warframes, companions, lures, specters, hostages, and just so much more. It's a great utility option for defending certain targets and helping allies, and also stopping you from dying. It's pretty simple. When you do cast Hallowed Ground, his second ability, Renewal's health restore per second is increased by 2 times, so they go hand in hand. Phoenix Renewal is the augment. When taking fatal damage while under the effects of Renewal, it will heal you instead to 50% health. The effect will only trigger once for each ally every 60 seconds. This augment is just cheat death with a 60-second cooldown, so you can use it at your own discretion. It's great for team composition. Although with Oberon's rework, I don't see the need for this augment. You don't die pretty much ever. But anyway, Reckoning is Oberon's fourth. Reckoning will lift enemies up and slam them down, dealing radiation damage. It will only target enemies in your line of sight. It will deal increased bonus damage to enemies that are affected by radiation status effects by 750 flat damage per stack of radiation. Of course, you want to have maximum stacks for maximum damage. Because of his kit changes and the guaranteed radiation status effects, it will be a lot easier for you to receive the max damage bonus. You will also be gaining 10 armor per enemy hit, capping at 1000 armor lasting for 30 seconds. The duration is affected by ability duration, and if the enemy is affected by radiation, they give an additional 5 armor per hit. Enemies that survive Reckoning will have 50% of their armor permanently removed. So Oberon actually does have a double defense strip, which is kind of weird, but at the same time, Reckoning is more of an AoE armor stripping, whereas Smite is literally just the target. Enemies that are hit by Reckoning will also have a 50% chance at dropping a health orb when they die, regardless if they are killed by Reckoning or not. This ability no longer blinds enemies, and the casting speed has been slightly increased. Overall, the damage of this ability is okay. It's not as good as what I hoped it to be, and of course, it does work hand in hand with Oberon's new passive, allowing you to sustain Righteous Negation easier. The armor increase from Reckoning will increase the armor from Renewal as well, so they work hand in hand too. Hallowed Reckoning is the augment, which allows Reckoning to gain 40% more range, and a 3-meter radius is formed around each enemy, granting bonus armor to allies and deals 300 damage per second to enemies. This deals radiation damage over time, and the only changes to this augment is the bonus armor granted from Hallowed Reckoning has a grace period now. The buff will remain for 3 seconds after leaving the radius, and it's reduced VFX for the patches that spawn because they can be visually overwhelming. It's a really nice augment to lean into for a bit more damage and a bit more armor. If you want to go all in on that tanking, then I'd recommend you give it a go. Now let's talk about how to play Oberon. Playing Oberon in missions is really simple. You want Renewal to be up at all times to help you and your allies, giving you that health regen, increasing your armor, and helping you stay alive. Casting Hallowed Ground in areas with groups of enemies to deal a ton of radiation damage. Cast Smite on tougher targets or in their general direction to delete a bunch of easier targets from existence, and also just help you deal with overguarded enemies. Smite is the perfect ability to just remove an Eximus or remove the problem, which is overguard, and that's what Smite does very, very well. Cast Reckoning when enemies are clustered together so that you get more health orb drops, which means your passive goes up more often, and also you do a bit more damage and so on. It's pretty straightforward. His third is a cast and forget for the most part. His 1, 2, and 4 are used in conjunction with each other. 1 and 2 are to apply radiation and defense strip, while his 4 cleans up. That's the simple way of playing Oberon. Now, how do we build Oberon for Starchart? A fairly balanced setup for Oberon in Starchart is really all you need. A bit of duration, a bit of range, and a bit of strength. His survivability is not a problem at all because we have his passive, we have radiation, we have renewal, and we have his force. Streamline is pretty good for efficiency to help with renewal's channel ability cost, and if you want to do more damage, go for more strength. This is the full build here. Any aura that you have available will work. How do we build Oberon for Steel Pass? Well, here is where you have quite a bit of freedom, which is where the pro of Oberon's rework comes in. Because he's so tanky naturally, you have a lot of freedom. High strength will increase the damage transfer from Smite, increasing the damage from our fourth ability, a bit of range for Hallowed Ground, it kind of helps for that, and a bit of duration for all of the abilities. Defensive layers. Honestly, I went for health conversion and adaptation, and because of his fourth ability and his passive, I'm not dying with all this armor and also renewal. I also have arcane universal fallout in so that we are constantly getting universal orbs, which means his passive is proccing. So I'd recommend you give that one a try too. If you have it, it's very expensive, but if you can get your hands on one, it is really powerful with Oberon. You could also go Blessing and Bellicose if you want more strength. It's really personal preference here and what you feel like building. When it comes to augments, it's the same thing with personal preference. I do like Hallowed Reckoning. You can also go Hallowed Eruption. If you do go for Hallowed Eruption, be sure to stack more duration. Otherwise, if you want to use the other augments or no augments, that works too. There's a lot of flexibility with Oberon here, which is great, and I've mentioned that before. When it comes to Archon Shards, casting speed definitely helps. More strength is also great. Radiation Shards for more ability damage does work. I actually put 2 on, or just use what you would like. Seriously, you can use whatever you'd like. And that pretty much covers the no Helminth Steel Path builds for Oberon. When it comes to the Helminth setups, honestly, I only have 2 here. I can't really think of anything else because I actually think that his base kit is quite nice. The first one that I'd recommend is Raw. Raw increases the damage of Smite and increases Reckoning. Overall, just increases the whole damage output of Oberon's kit. Stack strength, and I opt for Energize here. Overall, the damage increase is really nice. I do recommend that you stack as much strength as possible. I do opt for Energize, but you can change this out or change the setup to, match your needs and so on. And that's pretty much the Raw setup. It's pretty straightforward. It's like every other Raw setup, and we know how much damage this does. If you add a Viral Primer with the Cedo or the Epitaph, then it's even better because you scale that damage even more. And for the last setup here, which I'll be honest with you, is so overkill and over the top, you do not need it at all, but it's just a funny thing in theory, and I just felt like adding it into this video. Omamori Oberon, basically invulnerable, because you have his passive, you have Omamori, which gives you dodge chance, you have radiation, and you have a means of stripping overguard. It's so over the top, and you frankly just never die in this game. It's dumb, I know, but I just wanted to show it to you. If you have any other Helminth Oberon builds that you have and use, let me know in the comments below. But honestly, I think Oberon is pretty much a nice blank canvas to put on anything you want. You can subsume one of the abilities that you don't like, and then you're good to go. For my final thoughts on him, he is much tankier. He is definitely not flashy in terms of nuking everything in an absolute instant, but he can still do some good damage with his percentage-based damage from his Smite and so on. He's definitely still a support, but I am very sad about the Smite nerf from 50% to 10%. I will admit that absolutely sucks. Still very good though, because he can remove Eximus units, and he's just Eximus units' worst nightmare basically. But he is overall still a good team player, and I do recommend you give him a try, especially because everyone's getting a free Oberon for this update and so on. But yeah, I think that's me for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed this quick overview of Oberon's rework. Let me know in the comments below if you guys find any crazy synergies, and maybe I'll make a follow-up video if it's that broken and so on. Thank you guys for watching. I've just released a Nokko guide, so if you want to go and see Nokko's video, go and check it out. I'll see you for future videos.